Welcome. And here I'm immediately pressing screen record. Sometimes I research from topic to topic and lose my research simply because of distractions. Distractions in more research. And that's when I hit screen record. I was actually watching this video by some urban explorers, and I just love these urban explorer videos. Just pure inquisitiveness and curiosity leads these people to explore these structures. And here I was looking at this Philadelphia Electric Company video, and just astounding in every way. Built, I believe, in 1934, and once we get inside, just absolutely astounding, and seeming like this could have been anything, a World's Fair building, any of the glorious designations, and yet this has been turned into a massive power plant. Or perhaps this machinery was already here? And while watching this video, he gives a good narration of the history, and he was talking about the designer of this particular power plant had designed dozens of other power plants for the Philadelphia Electric Company. So I decided to have a little search, and right away, what I was suspecting. Here we can see the Chester Waterside Station of the Philadelphia Electric Company, and just as I suspected, looking absolutely glorious and repurposed into a power station, it seems. Really amazing. And we can imagine removed tech on these two towers. And this particular building was built in 1916. Boiler house, coal towers, turbine hall, and designed by this John T Windham. And here we see a little castle right away, some of his other designs. And what amazes me is, the dates given. As recent as 1930, 1934, the Franklin Institute, the hospitals and insane asylums. But it amazes me that this false narrative was being pushed as recently as 1931. And in a past video, I said that things could be as recent as 100 years ago. I mean, really, the whole story seems older and more like 200 years, as far as the mud flood and the last reset. But the narrative is being pushed as recently as the 1930s. And really, I regret missing this window that I could have spoken to my grandmothers. This Mr. Windham designed more than 60 buildings for the Bell Telephone Company and more than 30 for the Philadelphia Electric Company, founded in 1881. And pretty silly, contradicting their own narrative. This is a little early for power, and this guy is just pumping out power stations and phone companies in an unnatural fashion, seeming to put out more than he should be able to. Here we have a picture of his father, James Hamilton Windham, looking a little confused, and no picture of the young John Windham, designer of what seems like over 100 buildings. Here's a little look at this mysterious man's works. The District Police Station, 1896. Funeral home, of course. A funeral home. Not sure which part. Church and mausoleum. So he was all over the place, along with his 100 utility buildings, also building universities, recreational centers, skyscrapers, courthouses. And here's a great example. This courthouse being given a date of construction between 1938 and 1941. I mean, really, very recent. I mean, we should have, again, elderly people who may have been able to verify some of this in that time period. Just astounding. The family court building. Very recent date. And the Philadelphia family court building was moved to a new location on Arch Street. Again, always dissatisfied with these buildings and moving and tearing down and rebuilding. I think just done as part of the script to justify the existence of many of these buildings that really don't make sense. And in 1893, and here a little look at the last 8 videos that I watched. This Ryugyong Hotel in North Korea that I featured in a video once. It was really interesting, shared with me in a comment about some star fort or just an ancient footprint sitting below this hotel that we could see from aerial shots, and I'd never seen those before. It was really interesting. And this amazing Flat Earth British video by Martin, and he was showing Caucasian tribes being depicted in a Leeds atlas and castles in the Congo, and really fascinating. Really seemed to tie into the work I've been doing recently on what seemed like swapping races on continents, reorienting of people post-reset. And Lady Mud has been putting out very interesting work. And in this particular video, she was showing the waters underneath Jamaica, just below the coast. Amazing buildings and monuments and metalworks lying in ruin under the water off the coast of Jamaica. Port Prince, I believe. Port Royal. And we can have a little look. I'll leave the link to her video. You should definitely watch it, but I'll show you just a few little examples of what is lying under the water. Just really mind-blowing, and not just some primitive buildings, but really, really high-tech, high-tech, and just excellent discoveries off the coast of Florida, and just astounding. How old are these structures, or how recently did the flood occur? And was the flood less pertaining to the world above current sea level and more so to nations and people existing below current sea level? Really fascinating. And here I was watching a video by this secure team, kind of a UFO channel I've followed for a while. And very strange, he's just stopped posting for a while, and now he's explained what's happened to him. Again, a phenomenon that I've followed for quite a while and have witnessed myself many dozens of times. And many of these buildings that these urban explorers go into have running power still, abandoned for over 20 years in some cases, and power and computers with files on them are still operating. And here I just wanted to show a little tidbit, and I'm going to use the Gray's Armory in Cleveland, Ohio as an example. Here we can see it in past times. Looks like they're blasting this tower off. And really, this thing seems to have been massive at one point. And I've featured it in past videos. It just seemed like some giant castle. And all that's left now is this little section. Looks like a little corner. And here we can have a better look in modern times of all that's left. And what I found interesting were these little sections on the buildings that seem to jut outwards and have like a little base, just always seeming to have another purpose than just artistic flares, like some sort of piping these columns. And something that reminded me of it can be seen here on this factory, this really seeming like a more modern factory. And forgive me, not the best picture, I'm just showing the thumbnail again to this Urban Explorer channel. But we can see coming off the sides here these same types of vessels, or I'm not even sure what to call them, but clearly popping out of the building like an upside-down pyramid, seeming to be perhaps designed to contain liquid and handle the pressure. Not sure, and we could actually find out what the purpose of this is. But again, reminding me of something much older. And this Gray's Armory in Cleveland really having nothing to do with a power plant or a steel factory, but exhibiting this same factory-like feature. And really it does seem like an old Tartarian factory. And in this particular case, being designated at a very early time, 1837, as the Gray's Armory. In fact, the oldest building in Cleveland, or one of them. Here we can have a little look at the entrance, and pretty silly actually, something seeming very odd. And here I was having a little look on stolenhistory.org, an excellent website that looks into many of the things that we do, and we see a beautiful showcase of before and afters and pretty much the destruction of much of this prior civilization. And I found it pretty astounding, the sheer number of fires. And again, going back as far as our history really allows us to, and even this I think is a far reach, but nevertheless, beginning in 1755 with the Great Fire of Lisbon, accompanied by an earthquake and a tsunami. Just a small apocalypse in Lisbon, something I've been wanting to share for a while, just fascinating. And then we jump to the United States, to New Orleans, 1788, and again, a country founded in 1776, or at least officially becoming a nation. How great could the fire of New Orleans be, or the city, where the nation itself is just at an infant stage? But of course we know better. And how great could this city have been? Any one of these would be fascinating to dive into, but we'll reserve that for another video. I just wanted to share the massive amount of fires that were occurring, really beginning in a very early time period. And when we see how ridiculous these dates are, and really, as we saw earlier in this video, the false narrative being propagated as recent as the 1930s and 40s, then going back this far and attaching any credibility to these dates is pretty unrealistic. And the truth is, all these fires may have happened all at once, and all this time later, there would be nobody to question or prove any different. And again, these are not just fires. These are all the great fires of this place and that place. And really, when we have a look at the destruction of these brick buildings, not seeming at all like destruction caused by fire, but really caused by something like this. I mean, again, when we see chunks blasted out of the sides of buildings, I mean, this having an explosive and much more devastating result than some kind of fire sweeping through a city. And finally, I just wanted to have a little quick look at this Castillo de Coca in Spain. I stumbled across it in some research in my last video by accident, and couldn't resist coming back and having a little look. Just amazing, and you have to realize that this whole thing is built of brick, this massive monstrosity. And let's have a closer look. And also what we see are these same machine-like, factory-like flares that I was just talking about, these upside-down pyramids. And the pyramid, as Martin showed in a past Flat Earth British video, really this concept designed, if upside down, to keep water out, having an opposite effect, or keeping water in this case, or some kind of liquid. And this clearly being more than just a castle and more of a factory. And this thing is just mind-blowing. Clearly being destroyed. There was much more on the top. As you can see, we're just seeing the base. And if the base is this glorious, then what did the rest look like? Let's try to have a look at some older photos. And the Castle of Coca is located in central Spain, constructed in the 15th century, and has been considered one of the best examples of Spanish Mujar brickwork, which incorporates Moorish Muslim design and construction with Gothic architecture. And the Mujar refers to the group of Muslims who remained in Iberia in the late medieval period, despite the Christian reconquest. So again, as we saw in my last video, Iberia being given credit for much of this unexplainable architecture in this region. And just absolutely astounding that we're to believe a people in the 15th century constructed this. An absolutely fascinating work of art in which we know very little about. This will definitely require more investigation. But for now, I thank you so much for joining me, and do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.